Okay. All right, so we are recording, so I'm going to call this meeting at Wednesday, May 25th at 6:07 p.m. Because we do not have quorum, we're not going to be able to vote on the agenda. We can have a discussion about the agenda, and we won't be able to vote on, I do not believe, because we do not have quorum, we're going to be able to vote on the minutes. Other than that, that's really, we don't have any sort of binding votes at this point, other than approving the agenda and approving the minutes. So like I said, Radaya said that she might be able to join. She's at senior convocation. Laura Bitu said that she might be able to join a little bit later. So with that said, I'm just going to go forward and have just a brief discussion and adjourn shortly. So we will bypass the approval of the agenda, bypass the approval of the minutes. And then I just wanted to take this opportunity on item number 4, just to welcome the newly elected LSC members. I did invite I believe I invited all of them, if not the majority of them, or for those who had an email, invited them to this meeting. A few of them, or 2 or 3 of them, reached out and they, just thanked me for the invitation. And I don't know if they were gonna, at least one person said that she wasn't gonna be able to attend. But she did appreciate that I reached out to her. So I just want to welcome the new LSC member, community members, Alpha Thomas, Mary Geiger, the non-teaching staff, Troy Hilbrands. He won his re-election seat. I don't know if anyone ran against him, but he's been re-elected. And then our parent representatives, Raquel Don, Kelly Lish, Jason Nupp, Ronald Pulley, Shubhada Savant, Greg Rapinski, and then our student representatives, Balsat June, Emmett Schifrin, Alexandra Kerr, who won her re-election, and then our teacher representatives, Francis Hashimoto, who's one of the CTE teachers, and Emily Ricketts, who's also one of the CTE teachers in the legal department, and Mr. Hashimoto is in the engineering department. So congratulations to them. We will see whether they will continue on with the Equity Committee and build on the great success and just a lot of the work that we've done as a committee. So I just wanted to say thank you to them. So Debbie, yes, Debbie, I did send out the Debbie, who's one of our student representatives. I did send the invitation to the Jones LSC, so hopefully they also received it, but I didn't individually reach out to them, Debbie.
Yes, I was just talking to
Or are you asking for the new members? I'm sorry, Debbie. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you want to repeat?
members.
Oh, is your question if I invited the new LSC representatives to this meeting?
Sorry,
Hey, Debbie, I don't know if it's,
sorry.
oh, go ahead. I don't know if it's my connection or if it's something else, but I can't.
Yeah, I was just asking if the new LSC student members were invited.
So they were not, Debbie. I do not have their email addresses, and there's some, yeah. So I don't have their CPS email addresses. So I did not invite them. I was hoping that either the current student representatives or through the Jones, this meeting was posted on the Jones School website. They would have noticed that, or at least, yeah. But I did not invite them.
Okay, thank you.
So hopefully, with the new LSC, they will take their seats in July at the annual organizational meeting. So hopefully they will decide whether to continue on with the 3 committees, the health and safety the Health and Safety Committee, the Budget Committee, and the Equity Committee, and they will decide how to move forward and lead those committees as well as the LSC. So Debbie, I would encourage you to reach out to the 3 new LSC student representatives and just share your perspective and your experience on this committee, and encourage them to join one of those committees, or yeah.
Yeah, sure, of course.
So that's on that. So again, welcome to the new LSC members. And going on to number 5. So the Title IX at Jones, gender parity. So Radaya and Laura, after our meeting in March, they put together a survey and some questions that they wanted, that they collected during that meeting. And we were seeking some additional input from all of the members of this committee, so that way we can just share that or pass that information along to the administration, specifically to Mr. Mitchell, and see what to get his thoughts, and to move forward with that, or decide what what the next appropriate steps would be. So that's in the folder, and so I just, if everybody is taking a look at that and has reviewed it, then I think the next step would be just to send that information along to Mr. Mitchell, if he would be willing to accept that. And then really, it would be up to the next LSC to decide how they want to move forward. And it's my understanding, and Mr. Mitchell can correct me if I'm wrong here, it's my understanding that the CPS Sports Administration and the Title IX are working with the Jones LSC administration, and also the other thing on like just trying to understand the whole Jones sports parity. At least that's my understanding. I don't know any more than that. And then the other big news is that CPS has given or allotted a dedicated athletic director to Jones and other schools. So the athletic director will not have a dual role of having a class to teach, and they will basically be responsible for the athletic department and ensuring budgeting and scheduling and bus transportation and other responsibilities. Mr. Mitchell, do you have any comments, or would you like to add on to anything that I just mentioned?
Just a point of clarification. The athletic directors were already doing all the things that you mentioned, but having this dedicated position now allows them not to necessarily do dual roles, doing that and teaching. So it to one degree helps with scheduling, because now it frees up some spaces, but on the opposite, it creates some issues with scheduling, because those courses that person would have been teaching now have to be covered. So, and I'm personally not sure how we're necessarily handling that. I have not talked to our athletic director whether or not he's taking the position fully on like that, or whether or not he's still going to continue the dual role. I do think that they gave us the option, but CPS has now made that that position available. So you're correct in that regard. As it relates to any of the work or conversations between the school and Title IX and things of this nature, Ms. Gonzalez-Torres, as one of her administrative roles, is supporting kind of the athletics. So she has a little more hands-on with that. So I'm not 100% comfortable answering a whole lot of questions around that, but that would be moving forward the administrator who would be most directly connected in supporting the athletic director and things that are coming in line there. I know that there has been a ton of discussion. Title IX came and asked the questions, and we addressed some of their concerns. But to my understanding, I think everything is heading in a positive direction.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, and I agree. I think that's basically it. I think that the Jones Administrative Leadership Team is working with the athletic director and CPS to, working on the Jones sports and making sure that there's funding available and that there's parity of it parity. So, and then Ms. Het, hello.
Hi.
So I see you have a question.
I do have a question. Yeah, I was wondering if the current LSC ever received a list of resources comparing the resources between the girls' team and the boys' team.
We have not. So Ms. Het, we at the last meeting in March, we collected in that meeting and in that conversation, Radaya and Laura collected all of the suggestions, and including like trying to get an audit or an inventory of equipment and resources that are available to both the boys and girls team. So we have that. We have not passed along that information to the administrative leadership team to follow up on those, on that survey, or trying to get additional information on that.
Okay, and has it been brought to anybody's attention that the girls' team is lacking facilities when compared to the boys' team?
Yes, the girls team, the girls cross-country team, and it's my understanding the girls cross-country team and the track team did submit a
letter?
Some sort of letter, yeah, a letter discussing some of the disparities.
But facilities specifically, has anyone complained of inadequate facilities?
Yes, my understanding is that they have surfaced that perhaps they don't have the same access to certain facilities at Jones.
Okay, like the weight room or the track or meeting rooms, things like that?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yes, yeah, or like equipment. I think there was a discussion. I think someone brought up at the meeting some sort of, I don't know what it was. It was some sort of bike. And I know that some of the girls had indicated that that they didn't necessarily have equal time to that bike. And I don't know if that was just because they didn't realize that they had access to that.
Okay, yeah, I have an old girls' kit I think you're referring to. It's called an elliptigo. So it's a bike that can either be stationary or moving. Okay, so I don't know if Cassie is able to answer a question. I know she was here and then she turned off her camera.
Yeah, so Ms. Het, I use Cassie's Zoom account, so I don't have full control. So sometimes she is present, sometimes she isn't. It's just basically I'm using her account to host this meeting.
Okay, well, I guess because this is what's on the agenda for this meeting, I just wanted to put it on public record that it has been reported in the media that our daughter, Evelyn, was practicing with the boys team because of inadequate facilities on the girls team. That was the reason she was practicing with the boys team, because of inadequate facilities on the girls team. And I just wanted to point out that I contacted the reporter who wrote this and asked her where she got that information from. And she told me that she received that information during a conversation that she had with Cassie Cresswell. And I sent an email. I CC'd the LSC on it. They said they received it. I'm not sure if it was put in the public folder or not. There was an attachment that said public folder, but then when I click on the public folder, it's hard to find where things go in the public folder. So there, Cassie, I see you're there. So I was just wondering, did you have a conversation with Jamie Nesbitt Golden regarding Evelyn's training situation? You're muted.
Hey, Cassie, you're on
I
mute.
don't understand what on the record means if you can't share a quote from the media that explains this. And I don't understand what that, like, on the record means somewhere was published this statement. So you keep on talking about this, but I haven't seen that on the record. And
it was published in the Block Club Chicago article.
Well, share the link and share the quote.
Oh, I mean,
okay.
And read it for you.
I'm sorry, but you've been like trying to ask me about this for months, and it's bizarre. And and we had an entire LSC meeting where we discussed the lack of parity and adequate resources for the entire team. This
Yeah,
entire issue is not actually about your own daughter. And I know you want to make it about that, but it
Well,
just
no,
is.
no,
It just
I did
is
not want to make it about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
to
but
be
you
clear.
do want to make it about that. And that is why you've been hassling me about this for months. And I don't appreciate it. And I'm happy that this is recorded and will be on the internet forever. Please.
Cassie, if I can ask, just to be, I want everybody to be respectful and just to listen and hear everybody out. I understand, and I'm not, no, so Ms. Het, I'm not in any way trying to criticize. I just want this conversation to be productive and respectful. And I just want to make sure that your concerns are being addressed here. I know there are concerns, right? I have a daughter, as you know, on the cross country and the track team, and so there have been problems with both the girls and boys and how they felt, right? At least from my perspective and from what I've heard from my own child and from teammates. I'm a big supporter of the girls. So, I just want to be able to, from my perspective, right, as a parent, as a member of this equity committee, as a member of the LSC, just try to surface these things, pass this information along to the administration, to the sports administration, to the Jones administrative leadership, and have them try to address these things. And I think one great step was a few months ago when the athletic director, Mr. Stroke, had the parents led by Aaron Taylor and Frida, and they had. I think it was a really productive conversation, and I think that a lot of parents felt that it was moving in the right direction. So that's really, that's from my perspective, and I understand this has impacted you and your family significantly. I absolutely acknowledge that, and it's impacted the girls in various ways. And so I'm just trying to help them and support them to make sure that they're getting the sufficient training, the sufficient programs, the sufficient access to facilities and other equipment. And this is not really strictly right with the girls cross country and track team. This has come up in other girls sports as well. And I think it's just a bit of a pattern. So.
So the reason why I think I probably have maybe a different type of concern is because no one else's child is being spoken about or put in media articles that have to do with Jones. And in this last article, it stated as fact that the reason why she was training with the boys, because there's so many things having to do with this that all get woven together that don't belong together. And when you state that a reason a child had to make a decision was because of inadequate facilities on a girls' team as compared to a boys' team, you are literally saying that there is a Title IX violation there. That if a specific student had to make a decision because of a lack of facilities, was what was written in the article, for a girls' team, you are stating that there is a Title IX violation and that she is a part of it. That is my concern, because that is not the reason why Evelyn was asking to practice with the boys' team. It had nothing to do with inadequate facilities. But that is what was written. And I wanted to bring that to Cassie's attention, because when I contacted the reporter is stating, this is what Cassie Carswell told me. And I asked the reporter to remove the information from the article because it was false. And I sent an email to the LSC. So if that is not true that you said that, Cassie, then I would hope that you would contact the reporter and ask her to remove that information, because it's false. It's the article is speaking about one person and their decision, and they're being named. So I hope you can understand why my concern is, yes, I have a concern, of course, that the girls' team have access to equal facilities, have the same resources, that budgeting and funds that are allocated are done so evenly. Of course, I would hope that anyone would understand, or that out of anybody, you know, of course, I'm a huge proponent of supporting females in athletics. But I just want to point out that that is not the reason why she was asking to practice with the boys. I can't read your chat while I talk, so.
See, I don't really see a discussion of that in this Block Club article at all. So I don't know
It's
even
not-
what part you're attributing this to. Like, is the
No, it's the
article
most
that I just
recent.
linked the one you're talking about?
It's the most recent Block Club article, the one that I linked to my last LSC email that I sent to you. And it was marked received.
So, I hear what you're saying, and I understand that your student athlete, your child, right, your daughter, has been involved in this, and maybe perhaps involved in a way that is not fair to her, right? And I think that from what I've heard from the student athletes is that they have felt that they haven't had the same level of training or encouragement as the boys team. And so, you know, that's all I'm trying to surface this up, right? I'm trying to surface this concern that they have. And I think that's important to surface it.
I absolutely 100% agree with you. I just don't think that my daughter has anything to do with it. And unfortunately, she has become the focus. Yes.
I would agree with that.
That
And
is
I
the
don't
quote
think she has.
that you just put in.
So that quote is not attributed to me just because a reporter told you in a private conversation that I told her that, which I would never have told her that. The issue is disparity of resources overall. The OCR investigation in particular that was opened was about equipment and supplies. I don't know what the scope of the CPS investigation is. If you want her to write that and put a correction and say it should be inadequate resources or something, tell her to say that. But I'm not going to
It's not because
call
of
a reporter and ask her to change a
resources.
quote that doesn't even mention my name. Like, this is, and it doesn't actually, I mean, no.
You understand how this is being stated as fact. This is
But
not
that's
being
the problem
stated
with
as
Block Club, and it's not my problem. And I'm not going to ask Jamie Nesbitt to correct it. So sorry, and I'm sorry to be rude, but I mean, no, come on. That's, if you think it's incorrect, get her to correct it.
Okay, I'm glad this is recorded. I'm just glad it's recorded. Then Jamie Nesbitt can see this and say that you are refuting, saying I did not say that. And that's the problem here.
I'm not
is
saying that, Susie. I am not saying that. For the record, for the public record, I am not saying that. I'm saying that I am not quoted here, that it's not a quote from me. I'm not going to ask a Block Club reporter to make a correction in a story, even if I think that perhaps there's a word that could be corrected there. That is not saying that I said that to her or anything about that. What? No,
That's why I contacted
about this issue.
That's why I
Kathy,
contacted the
Kathy,
reporter and I
Kathy, if
said,
we
where did
can-
this information
Kathy
come
and-
from?
So Kathy and Susie, if I can, right? I'd like to take this offline if possible. I'm just trying to take, I just want to make sure I hear you saying, Susie. And Kathy, I understand, you know, this is something that I think should be taken offline between the two of you. I think that
Absolutely, and I wish Cassie had replied to my email, and then we could have probably had this conversation at another time. Yeah, so I'm happy to continue this conversation, but
okay. If you
yeah, no, you're
do you
welcome
have
to move forward with your
other
meeting.
questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have
most
other
definitely.
questions?
No, I don't have any other questions. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a comparative list of resources, that you weren't receiving complaints about inadequate facilities. And to me, facilities are things like, weight room, locker room, lakefront path, I guess, if you're referring to at track, meeting rooms, things like that.
Yeah, and those have been surfaced by some of the girls on the cross country and the track team.
Okay, but I just want to make sure that things are moving forward so that, this hopefully doesn't resurface again, because there are a lot of the resources, the facilities, and since February, since a meeting, I was suggesting, can we see a comparative list, and at the very least, do whatever we can collectively to make sure that everybody has what they need to be successful, because that's what's important. Yeah.
That is absolutely right. I agree, right? We want success for both boys and our girls teams in every sport or in every club. So we have collected that information. So the next step for this body would just be to send this along to Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Yvette Torres.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I will do that at the end of this meeting or at the end of this week and send that along. And that survey and the questions are in the folder, the public folder for the Equity Committee, which I can drop a link here. Yeah, so, okay, awesome. And then, so going to the next item on the agenda, just moving along here, is the textbook. So essentially what we have decided, or what the LSC has decided, is just to defer to the social studies teachers to make a decision on when and what textbook they're going to replace. So that's really the update on that. And then I don't know if Mr. Mitchell has any additional, Mr. Mitchell, do you want to add anything on that? On textbook selection and curriculum review?
No, just that what the last thing I remember the social studies team talking about is that decision will not be made in isolation, that they will get, a ton of feedback. They haven't laid out their plan, like, step one, this, step two, that, but they did, ensure that, like, before any final decisions would be made, they would get feedback from, the people most important, which is the students. So, just as an FYI, as we move along over the course of the next year, in terms of looking to adopt that newer text.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. And then student report, Debbie, do you have anything to report?
No, not really, not at this time. I'll let you know though.
Thank you, Debbie. And then public participation. Does anyone on this committee, would anyone on this committee like to say anything? Hearing none, I am going to say, I just want to thank everyone on this committee for their contribution, their dedication and effort to improve and build on improving the school community. And particularly, I want to thank Violetta, Dora, JY, Michael, Deborah, Radaya, Olivia, Raquel, Laura Bityu, Debbie, our student representative, Debbie, and Daniel. Thank you so much. I think we have done a lot of great work in the past 18 months, and some of that has been hiring a culture or recommending hiring a culture and climate coordinator to support Mr. Mitchell and all the work that he's done at the Jones Equity Initiative and Plan. We have we also recommended updating the dress code for the Jones School community, which I think was overall a well received, and that will be included in my understanding. That will be included in the student handbook for school year 2022-2023. And then we also encourage the Jones School administrative leadership to translate the Jones School communications, their Eagle newsletters, and other important documents, so that our families who speak Spanish, Mandarin, and other languages are able to understand and be able to be informed of what's happening in the school community. Oh, Debbie, do you want to? So I see a comment from Debbie. Debbie, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So today I went to the Black Student Union meeting today, and the main topic that was brought up was the shooting in Buffalo, the mass shooting in the Buffalo grocery store. And a lot of the students were feeling like kind of ignored in a way because the shooting was not brought up by any teachers. We did have one teacher that did bring it up, Mr. Gunnick, but that was about it. And we didn't really have like a moment of silence like we did for the Texas shooting, and we didn't really have an email. So we were just, so they just kind of felt like our voices weren't really heard, and that the lack of acknowledgement was just kind of, they just felt disrespected in a way, I guess you could say, because it was just not mentioned. So yeah.
Thank you, Debbie. I don't know if Mr. Mitchell would like to respond or acknowledge what Debbie just mentioned.
Hey, Debbie, thank you for sharing that. It's funny you mentioned that because I literally just had this conversation maybe 30 minutes ago with a couple of other students, excuse me, in regards to, the shooting in Texas. And I asked some of the students how they kind of felt about that. And these were Black and brown students I was speaking to. And, they had their concerns. And some of the students were thankful that we did mention, the stuff around Texas. And I told them, I said, it is a tough decision from a leadership standpoint, all the things that we try to acknowledge, because we know that these things impact people, but to what degree do we take it on as a school to acknowledge? I'm not trying to diminish anything that happened in Buffalo, but I guess the connection that it being a school, us being a school kind of thing, rang a little more. I think that played a role in why maybe we took time to address this. Again, not to diminish the importance of what happened in Buffalo, but I guess in terms of relevance and impact on students directly. And again, like I said, not to minimize that in Buffalo, but sometimes we make those decisions. And from what I'm hearing from you, us not acknowledging that in the same manner, it was deemed as disrespectful. And that wasn't the intent. Again, I had this conversation with students where, we as a school could take the time and acknowledge every single, event that happens around the world. And we might choose one day not to acknowledge that one. And that's the one that, meant something to somebody and we missed it. Or we could go the opposite and choose not to acknowledge anything. And then it seems as if we don't care. So it's a difficult balance that we have. And, I apologize that from your perspective, we missed the boat in terms of no real acknowledgement from the school level to the degree that things were acknowledged today.
Yeah, I completely understand that. But one of the main things that we knew that you guys would say something of that sort. That's what we kind of talked about in Black Student Union. The fact that this is a school and a school shooting would of course be mentioned. And we do appreciate that because it still relates to our school environment. But some of our students are people that work in grocery stores and retail. So they just kind of felt like left out, that their kind of, I guess you could say, fear wasn't acknowledged in anything. Like, I feel like even just a teacher just saying, oh, what are your thoughts about this? Or can we talk about this? Just have a moment to just debrief on your feelings. Like, I feel just like a small conversation or some sort by administration or teachers would have been greatly appreciated, because we do have a decent Black student body and they just did not feel heard. So yeah. But we do understand the balance that you have to make, and you can't say everything. It's just that this one made national headlines, and it was just recent, and it was just 10 days ago, and we haven't exactly heard anything. It was just kind of hurtful.
Point well taken. You know, like I said, there are things that we know that happen in the world, and we may shoot teachers a note like, hey, you know, you may have students who are impacted, so just kind of keep that in mind. You know, you may choose to open the floor for conversation. You may witness that students are, you know, acting a little out of the ordinary, so take those things into consideration. We sometimes do send notification, but we don't always like require teachers to like, hey, this happened in the world, please make sure you talk to students. We hope that some teachers, as they build relationships with you all, will see that importance and in their own individual classrooms, kind of, you know, create that space as opposed to it being a directive from school leadership. So we're still, you know, challenged with that as well. But I definitely hear what you're saying, and you know, we'll do a little bit better job of reminding the teachers about, you know, just kind of how many kind of world events, how they may impact students in a smaller way, and just acknowledging that, like, hey, you know, this happened the other day. If you need some space, or if it's impacted you in a certain type of way, you know, here's how you can handle yourself in my space. So just having that level of acknowledgement, I know, is important. So we're going to hopefully continue to move our school in that direction, where that becomes a natural course of events. It shouldn't be something administratively driven, but something that should become organic in a classroom setting.
Thank you. That's really all we ask for, just like effort towards these things. So yeah, thank you.
100% get it. Thank you for sharing that.
Debbie, thank you so much for surfacing. And I just want to add, and I think hopefully Mr. Mitchell would agree to this, is like having these conversations are helpful. And I think, you know, if the students as a collective or as their the cultural identity clubs, maybe perhaps having the culture and climate coordinator, Mr. Pablo Lopez, with Mr. Mitchell reaching out, you know, when these things happen to those cultural identity clubs, and just asking them, gauging how the climate is and gauging how they're feeling. But yeah, I think Mr. Mitchell would encourage having these healthy conversations as a group is also, I think they would absolutely encourage that and promote it. Are there any other comments at this point? Deborah.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that we may also want to raise up our Asian and Black and Brown students as we learn that more of our faculty members will be departing at the end of the school year. My daughter, the first thing she said to me when I picked her up at school today was that one of her beloved Asian female teachers is leaving. And that's heartbreaking. There aren't that many of them. And since this is the Equity Committee, I thought it was important just to share my concern that the very groups that we're trying to bring into our school are fleeing, and that makes me very sad.
Thank you, Deborah. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, I just want to thank Mr. Mitchell. You have attended, I think, all of our meetings, or most of our meetings. Maybe you missed one. But I really do appreciate you making the time and attending wherever you are, whether you're in your car, in your office, in your home, on vacation. I do appreciate that you make that effort to participate and join and listen and provide us with some guidance and feedback, and just trying to help us move along. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And I know personally, I think our professional relationship has grown. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. I'll close just by saying that, you know, I'll use an I statement. I, as a leader, this is a human being, you know, I say a lot of things to students, but I don't just say them to say them. So when I say this, I mean it as well. Commitment is not just a word, it's an action. And, you know, I try to model commitment in everything that I do. So that's why you see me in all these different places, doing all these different things. As soon as I get off of here, I'm going to be on stage handing out diplomas to our seniors, because this is, commitment. So I'll just leave it at that.
Great. And then just want to thank our teacher representative, Olivia Guerrero. Thank you so much for your commitment and your effort in joining us. And for everybody else, for all of our members, I should say, I really appreciate y'all for your commitment. And yeah, stay tuned to what the new LSC members do and whether they will continue forward. So with that, Deborah, Mr. Mitchell, Cassie, Michael, Olivia, Debbie, and Susie, thank you all for sharing space today.
Thank you, Roberto.